My name is Jakub Spiszak. I will be the technical background of this webinar. In case you have some technical issues, you can contact me by email. I was sending the invitations. You can write me private message, or you can also write in the chat. I'm reading all of that during the webinar. From official information, I have to mention, not have to, I want to mention that we are meeting here thanks to Erasmus Plus program funded by the European Union. That I will mute myself and I will give word to our presenter of today. Helen, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Jacob. Thank you. Hello, everybody. Lovely to see you all here, and thanks for taking the time to attend the webinar. I think this series is a great idea because there's a lot of experience out there that can be shared, and there's no need for everybody to be reinventing the wheel every time they go to do something. There's an expression that I use a lot in youth work, and that is, none of us is as good as all of us. I think we all bring something different to the table, and knowing what you're good at, knowing maybe what you're not so good at, and finding somebody else who's good at it can actually, makes for a much more comprehensive team. A soccer player with 11 goalkeepers isn't really much good. So that's why we have people in different positions, and it does make a difference. So my name is Helen Butler. I've been a youth worker for longer than I'm prepared to say. I think here in Ireland, we'd say since God was a child. And I work in youth information. So my work is all about helping young people either gather information so they can make good choices, or find their voice, that they can use it and learn how to use it so that they can advocate for themselves. And that's really, really important to me. And I carry this through into the European mobility work and to youth exchanges. We're not travel couriers where we're just transporting a group of young people from one country to another and then bringing them back again. There's a lot more happening besides in all of that. So it's that's a really important part of this for me. I'm based in Ireland, in County Galway on the west coast, and I've been working there for quite a while. But I have to say that my youth work career really blossomed when I discovered European mobility work, and in particular youth exchanges, seminars and training, both for myself and just for the way that I work with young people. In that it's a great chance to do really deep youth work. If you want to do really deep work, it is a great chance to do that, to see how other countries actually do youth work, and you can compare and contrast how you do it, learn some good things, notice also the things that you do really well, which is great. And you can, have that objective look at how we do things, and then help our young people to develop their skills, and also to develop a love for travel. And travel is so liberating for all of us. So encouraging them and showing them how doable everything is an important part of this. So today's topic is about the do's and don'ts of youth exchanges. The first thing I'd like to say about it really is that how we all carry out our youth work is different, because we're all different. So I'm not here to tell you what you should do, but I am here to tell you that I've been doing this for a long time, and I've discovered lots of things that help. The majority of those have either come from mistakes I've made or things that have gone wrong, because it's very seldom that we learn a lot when things run smoothly. I've had written a note for myself here to remind myself to speak slowly. In Ireland, we tend to speak really quickly. So please, wave your hands or do something like this if you think that I'm talking too quickly. I will try, but, we always regress to the way we do it normally. So I'll try hard. So anyway, I'm not telling you what to do, just giving you some tips from my experience, and you can take what you will from it. So what we're going to do to kick off, I suppose, if I start by sharing the slides, I have a PowerPoint presentation, and I'm going to share that, but talk through it. So we will work from there. Just to mention the person on the person there is, his name is Michael. He came on a youth exchange with me to Estonia back in about 2012. And following on from that, he went to Georgia volunteering for about 10 months. So that's him at the top of a mountain in Armenia. where they went traveling while they were there in Georgia. He then came to Barcelona with me on another exchange, and he's just found his place in life. You'll see him regularly on social media going, "Hey guys, anybody feel like meeting up?" And he'll get a message from Istanbul or from someplace else where, "Hey Mike, let's go, let's do something." And it's just been amazing. So we're going to break into breakout groups. What I want you to do in the group really is just have a think about, reminisce a little bit. Where and when was your first trip abroad? You as a person, you know, maybe as a conscious young person in the sense of a teenager upward, as opposed to a baby. How did you experience it? How was it for you? And now when you travel, apart from your passport and your money, is there anything that you will never travel without or would really upset you to be without when you go traveling? So if you wouldn't mind, Jacob, I will hand it over to you for the techie bit. And what did we do about with 18 people? So 4s and 5s. 4s is 16.
Yeah. I will be opening the rooms very soon, and I will send the questions again with the announcement. How much time do we have, Helen?
I say maybe max 10 minutes. Maybe we'll let you know after 8. And if you're ready, we'll come back. And if not, we'll continue for 10.
Yeah. Everyone is heading to their rooms very soon. Have a good one. We will be back approximately 3:20. We will inform you.
Is this also the breakout room or not? Sorry.
Yes, this is also a breakout room. Helen, you should be in other room. Is there a chance you had a pop-up that you didn't click?
No. No, I didn't get a pop-up for a breakout room.
No, I mean Helen. Helen should be in different room. Everyone else, you are in the correct room. So Sibel, Agne, Nauman, and Louis, you can start your breakout room. Helen, I will try to figure out how to move you to another room.
So if I remember correctly, the first question was, what was the first time you went abroad for a youth exchange, right? Or for a project? I mean, my first project is when I went to Aruba. It was a youth exchange about activism. So that was my first experience with youth exchanges, and something I would not forget to take now. I think maybe my laptop or charger. That's something I cannot forget to take, because I like usually when I'm abroad on projects or something, I also need to work, so I try to work on my laptop. And yeah, and if I don't bring my charger, I don't have nothing to charge my phone. So, and I don't want a phone without battery. So yeah, that's from my side. Who's next?
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
Hello. So I can't switch on the camera because I'm on the way. I haven't experienced any youth exchange, but I have attended TCA transnational cooperation activity in 2018. It is the first experience for me as a training course in Italy, and it is the good experience, of course, for Erasmus Plus projects. And my mobile phone is very important for me. I cannot think anything about without taking it somewhere. Thank you.
If I may ask, where are you from, Sibel?
Turkey.
Turkey. Nice to meet you.
You? What about Luis? What about you?
I'm from Curacao.
Sorry?
I'm from Curacao.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Hi, is it my turn to speak, I guess? Oh, okay. So I first went last August to Czech Republic, close to Prague, and the title of that Erasmus training course was Gender Identity Through Arts, and it was really interesting. It was my first time, and it was really interesting. The fact that I have met a lot of people, even from the LGBTQ community, particularly. And it was really great to understand their thoughts, their ideas, and they were super nice people. They were so sympathetic, they were so empathetic, they were so genius, and they were very innovative in ideas. Like they were very unconventional, right? So it was great to meet them. And even again, I applied to that Erasmus again in October in Barcelona, close to Barcelona, on the same topic. And there were some half of them were the people from the previous project. So it was great to understand the diversity. It was great to understand the inclusivity. It was great to understand the people thoughts and the networking and the friendship. So it was really great. And again, then I applied to Turkey. It was on the Green Union. And how can we convince you to work more focus on sustainability, particularly in their dressing and their lifestyle. And now I applied to Morocco, Fez, and it's a kind of training for the youth worker. I'm now in a waiting list. I've been selected, but I'm in the waiting list and waiting for their final response. And I continue to be participating in these kind of activities, particularly the training courses. Thank you.
Thank you, Nauman. I mean, it was nice to hear your experience. You're mainly doing training courses, right?
Yes, I do exchange as well, but I have done only one exchange, but I'm more interested in training courses.
Yeah. Okay. Nice. So who's next?
Sorry, guys. Hi. I'm a bit busy today because it unexpectedly came a class of kids, to our center. So I need to run, to participate. But they will leave and I will join you. I'm very sorry.
Don't worry, Rula, right?
Yes. Now I can a bit talk with you. So, but if you tell me again what the question was, I'm very sorry.
The question was, where did you go for your first project, like for your first international experience? And then the second question was, what can you not travel with now? Like, what is something that you need to take every time you travel?
Every time I'm traveled, my
And
wallet and passport.
Also one, sorry, one more question, Anna. There's one more question. How was your experience?
Oh, my international experience, and I'm actually work quite long time, you know, so hard to remember when it was first. But recently, when I work in this center, it was a first experience. We had amazingly successful youth exchange in Estonia. So that was really amazing stuff. And yeah, this was last year, because I worked just 1 year in the center. What else? What I would take definitely with me when I'm going to the youth exchange? I don't know, it's difficult to say. But every time worrying, yeah, some presents, some Lithuania souvenirs, papers, insurance documents, like that. I don't know, nothing special. And third one was? And sorry, third one question? Can't remember.
No, only 3 questions.
And third one, last one, what it was about?
No, I think you answered all of them.
Yeah, now we already, you know, preparing to go in the middle of April. Yeah, also we'll go to the exchange, so youngsters so happy. We every time have more people, you know, than we can take, just 10 you know, teenagers group. So, but waiting also, that's nice.
What is the topic about?
Artificial intelligence. That's popular.
Yeah, especially now.
Yep. Dangerous toy, I would say.
Yes, sometimes it is.
It's like I could say would not be heavy to say that it's like a drug, you know, on 21st century. Social media drugs, I don't know how to call it even. Especially for young minds, you know. So that's it.
Hi, I would like to answer the third question. I forget to answer about what I can not forget. I mean, like, so the answer is this to this question that I cannot go without courage. I must need.
Sorry, everyone, we are closing the rooms as we speak. I know that I cut some of you off in the middle of a sentence. I'm really sorry for that. But if we want to finish on time, we have to follow the schedule. Helen, in the end, we only had 3 groups because some of the participants which are connected aren't really connected. So I was going in between the rooms and I tried to move some people around. So in the end, we had 3 groups of people sharing. Meanwhile, I'm muting everyone's microphone again. And Helen, the stage is back yours. Helen, sorry, I muted you as well. Can you turn on your microphone?
Yeah, sorry about that.
Sorry, yeah, working.
Yes, I just wanted to you know, get a sense of people's experience of traveling and thinking about it from the perspective of young people traveling, and particularly young people who haven't traveled much themselves, or maybe come from families where traveling has not been part of the family agenda at all. You know, for the last question, my one is I hate to travel without Irish tea bags. I bring them with me always. I don't always need to have them if there's good coffee, but if I want to have tea, I won't travel with my Irish tea bags. But again, it really was. Does anybody want to add anything or offer anything from the conversations rather than hearing what everybody had to say? Was there anything that stood out for anyone, or something that the question prompted in you? Or not? That's okay. That's all right. Okay, for young people, like I said, you know, sometimes when we're under pressure, particularly I find in youth work, we get caught up very much in the activity that we're doing and less in the actual journey that the young person is taking. And I think for these traveling trips, this mobility work, I think if we can really focus on the experience of our young people, it actually makes it a much more rich activity, much more rich journey, much more rich event for them. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with it, I don't know if you can see this, but I love this book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It's not the be all and end all for everybody, but I do love it. And I particularly always do my planning using habit number 2, which is begin with the end in mind. You know, rather than saying, how are we going to do this? Thinking about what do I want this to have been like when it's been over and it's been successful. So for a youth exchange, it will be things like, you know, that you've just arrived home from a youth exchange and it was brilliant. Everybody's in really good form. You feel really positive about your experience as a leader. You know, what does that mean? What does that look like? And then once we've identified what are those aims that we want from it, how do we get there from here to there? What do we need to put in place? I like planning things. I like planning things effectively. I like anticipating things that might go wrong and planning them out of the process. Now, there will always be something you didn't expect. And that's fine. You know, it's absolutely fine. But if you're ready for most things, I think that really helps. So beginning with the end in mind is really important. And I think when we are doing that, you know, when you're home and the trip went well, what does really well look like? You know, visualize it for yourself. You know, you're traveling back to your hometown on a bus, or they're coming into the youth centre the following day or the following week, and everybody's buzzing. You know, what are they talking about? What was the high point for them? You know, and then what do we need to do now in the planning stage in order to make this happen? And I don't want to sound negative when I say what could go wrong, but there are little bumps that will happen on the road, and some of them we can anticipate and we can have a contingency plan ready for it. Some will be unexpected and we learn from it. But everything that we do that we can iron out those creases will make life so much easier for you as the leader and make the whole experience so much more pleasant for the young person. So I think, you know, having a look at that, and one of the first things I think you need to do when you're doing this is getting to know your group. Who are the people? This is a group of young people that we took to Belgium in pre-COVID, I think it was about 2016, and had a super time. Now, these aren't all Irish young people, this is the entire group. Some of these young people that we took, I still know them. There's one there who came on a youth exchange to Finland in about 2012, was on this one in 2016, went to college to study music production, and subsequently went to Helsinki to do her master's. And again, because of the traveling experiences, because of knowing that she could manage in these other countries, she was able to go away for a year to study abroad. So these things do make a difference. So knowing your group, I think, is a really important part of it. Trying to get a bit of a team spirit going with your group in advance if you can. You know, when we get home, if I just go back to the previous slide and say, when you're home and the trip went really well, you know, what does really well look like? Well, it can be that, well, they're all home, they're all alive, they're all safe. That's the start. You know, we've had maybe as few mishaps as possible. That you feel good about it yourself as the lead, that I feel really good about how it went for me. you know, that maybe we've had a really good team spirit between our country group, the Irish group, but also that we've had a good team spirit for me with the other leaders, that we're a team. This isn't a team of Irish people and a team of other countries coming together. We're meant to mix up and become that melting pot where we're all just one big homogenous group. So did that happen, you know? What kind of learning was there for the young people and also for you? And learning maybe is about new activities or new skills, but it also might be about personal growth. Having to deal as a leader with an argument or something that's gone badly wrong, or that, you know, these things help us grow once we get through them. But again, working out for yourself what it is that you want from this and how you want to get there. And then with your people, it is really going to be about, you know, making sure that they know that they can depend on you. You're not replacing a parent, and you shouldn't be trying to look after them like they were your child, but they're also not strangers. You know, they are young people, and young people get nervous about traveling, and particularly nowadays since COVID. I mean, I can't speak for any other country, but certainly the young people that we work with are very, very different to the young people we worked with before COVID. There's a lot more anxiety. There's a lot more lack of self-confidence. There's an outward confidence, but there's an inward lack of confidence in them. So it makes things like traveling just a little bit more challenging, if you like, and making sure that they get home and they get home safely. But if they know that they can trust you, that you're on their side, I think that's an important part of it. And we can only do that when we get to know each other, you know, and it is important that we do that. Now, I stuck here in the corner of this slide, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And I know, you know, not everybody believes it to be, but it's a simple way of explaining. In terms of our different needs, you know, the basic needs at the bottom, the physiological needs and the safety needs, those are really important. And if we don't meet those needs, we cannot look at meeting any of the higher ones. So when somebody is outside their comfort zone, when somebody feels unsafe, they're not listening to you. They're not paying attention to what's happening. They're worrying about what's going to happen next. Will I be able for this? How will I manage? You know, this is what's going on inside them. So they're no longer participating at a meaningful level with you or with the other people in the group. So helping them to settle in is a big part of this. So getting to know the individuals. I would always say that I didn't bring a group of 5 or 6 young people to whatever country. I brought 5 or 6 individuals, and they're all different and they all have different needs. Some of them are super confident, maybe not so much so on the inside. Some of them are quite anxious. Some of them never did this before. So it is really important that we get in there to those basic needs. You know, are there concerns or worries? Finding a way that they can tell you. Maybe it's an anonymous Microsoft form or something like that, or a question box that they can put their notes on. But what concerns and worries might they have about a trip? You know, what are the things? And it'll often be, what if nobody likes me? What if I don't like the food? What if I can't sleep when I'm there? You know, what if I don't want to do the activities? Things like that. And we can answer all those questions before we ever leave the country to go on this trip, which will put all of those worries at bay. And then they are traveling much less anxious than they would be, which makes it more pleasant for them and much easier for you. It is important to know if there are any medical or psychological issues. And I always add in psychological issues because I would have always asked about medical issues. And then I was on an exchange where we discovered that one of the members has panic attacks. Now, I had never seen somebody having a panic attack. We didn't know, was it an asthma attack? Was it a panic attack? Was it a heart attack? You know, and it was a really scary night for us. You know, 2 of us took him outside and we sat down and we chatted until about 5 o'clock in the morning. And then suddenly he just looks up and he goes, "I'm starving." And we said, "Great, you're fixed, go to bed." But, you know, it was quite scary for us at the time. And again, think of somebody who's afraid of heights or has a real deep fear of spiders or things like that, or is afraid of the dark and doesn't want to say it. those things will prey upon them. So we can help them overcome these things if we know about them. So it is often important that you include psychological things on your consent forms for parents, but also you talk it through for two reasons. One is sometimes parents don't want to say these things because they're afraid that you won't bring their child if you know that they have this. Now, I've taken young people with very, very significant issues abroad, put a lot of work into it, a lot of work talking to doctors and psychiatrists and whatever beforehand, and everything went along perfectly well. I worked harder than I ever did on a youth exchange, but it was an absolute perfect outcome. So you will have more work if you bring somebody with extra things, but it can be so wonderful. And I remember on the plane back to Dublin and chatting to this guy, and I just said, how's it been for you? And he goes, I feel like I'm normal, after having a diagnosis that made him feel like he was not normal. So, you know, we have great power in the things that we do, but parents often won't tell you stuff because they're afraid you won't bring their child. So assuring them that the reason we want to know this is so that we can manage it if something happens. If somebody has an episode of whatever it is, a medical or psychological episode, we'll know what to do because we knew about it before we left. We've read up on it, we've checked. Somebody with diabetes, type 1 diabetes, you know, I met with her and her mother and we talked about it. I said, how will I know if something's going wrong? Is there something that I should do? And they said, well, at 7:30 every evening, she needs to take an injection for the night. So I set an alarm on my phone for 7:30 every evening. And every evening when my alarm went, she looked up and just nodded her head. I've done it, you know. And then they said, always carry a bottle of Coke or something like that in your bag, just in case. And once only did she need it. And we got through that whole thing without any episode, which is what you really want. So sometimes things happen that you don't expect to happen. I took a youth exchange abroad. I had somebody whom I knew had asthma. I didn't realize their asthma was as bad as it was. And they actually had to bring a nebulizer with them. And in the morning after we arrived, somebody came around to say this person can't breathe because they had forgotten one piece of a drug that they needed for their nebulizer. And we were in Estonia on that particular trip, and we ended up going to a hospital. And I don't know if there are any Estonians there, but Estonian, and it's quite a strong language. So we were in the hospital while the youth worker was talking to the nurse, and it sounded like they were having a row. And I could see this girl was getting more nervous. Her eyes were getting bigger and filling up with tears. And I just leaned over and I said, look, don't worry. I won't let them amputate anything. And she looked at me in shock, and then she laughed. And then it was okay. And we did get through it and we got it sorted. But keeping things calm for the young person can make a big difference for you if you can do that. So medical, psychological issues, I think they're important to be aware of them. Never to embarrass somebody, obviously, about them or talk about them in the company of anybody else, because these can be very, very private things. And young people have enough to do without worrying about what somebody else thinks of their medical stuff. I think it's also good to remember how you felt sometime when you were outside your comfort zone. And we're all different. Some are introverts, some are extroverts. You know, some have traveled a lot. I'm an introvert. I get really nervous about sleeping arrangements. I would much prefer to be in a room by myself because I need quiet time every now and again. I don't need a lot of it, but I like to sleep in a room by myself. So until I know what the sleeping arrangements are, I will always have a level of anxiety going. And there are lots of young people who feel like that about things. They don't mind sharing, but what if, and what if, and what if this, and what if that? So helping them to get to know each other, your group, and then the big group, you know, and be there as an encourager. You know, always be a what if person or when person, as opposed to an if person. If you settle in, everything will be fine. If sounds very doubtful. You know, give it a day. When you settle in, it's going to be fantastic. You know, they never believe us when we say, when we're leaving on a trip, that in 8 days' time, you're going to be sobbing when you're saying goodbye to people that you don't know at the moment. And then at the end, they're all sobbing. you know. So helping them to get to know each other, but put yourself in that situation and remember what that was like. And I think that's an important part of it. You know, you need to have sessions with your young people before you go if you really want to get value out of these trips. Now, I know some of you, you know, go on camps, and I've been on youth exchanges where young people met their leader in the airport and they weren't actually part of groups, and there's nothing you can do about that. But if it is a group that you're working with, you can really go deep, you know, on a youth exchange. Just looking to see if I've left out anything out of my notes. Yeah, just that whole thing about imagining the freedom that comes with knowing that you're safe, that those two safety needs, physiological needs are met, that you are being looked after, you're safe, you feel safe inside yourself. And if you do, you can participate freely. It makes such a difference. So it is important. I think the other thing that I didn't mention there that I do is because I am a parent and my children have grown up now at this stage, but they've been on youth exchanges with other people, is knowing that everything's okay. So I make a WhatsApp group of one parent contact number, and I'll send them a message on our journey out, say, you know, we've landed in such a place, waiting for the bus, everything's going fine. And that just gives those parents a bit of a, and they're off your back then. This isn't about, well, it is about looking after them, but it's more about looking after myself. I won't have people message, is everything okay? I tried ringing her and I can't get through. Because you send that one message, that's okay. You might want to send another one in the middle of the week or not. And I would always send one the day we're leaving, just to say, you know, we're packed up, we're on our way to the airport. We'll get into Dublin at this time. You know, just a reminder. And again, it keeps them happy and it keeps them at bay. They've all got my number. If there's a problem and they want to ring me, they can. Nobody's ever rung. Once I started messaging, people stopped needing to ring. So it can be useful in terms of taking a burden off yourself. I hope everybody's okay there now. I think we're going to do questions maybe midway or towards the end, but you know, make notes of your questions anyway as we're going along. So the other thing is that not everybody has traveled abroad, and it can be quite, you know, kind of scary for people. They've never done this. There's a lot of stories out there now about airports and airlines and you know, security and all this. So again, how do we solve it? By explaining to people what's happening. I mean, it's not unusual to be in a situation where you've got that many people as is in that photograph there. And you're worried as a young person, where's everybody else? How will I recognize everybody else? You know, making sure that your young people have your phone number in their phones so that they can message you. Google Maps and the little pins that you can, we'll meet you in this place, we'll meet in that place, you know, have key places. If you don't know where everybody is, go to, and then it makes it simple. You know, it makes it much simple. I've had groups where we brought in a suitcase and a pile of clothes and we practiced packing. You know, explaining passports, explaining airports, explaining security, explaining what to wear when you're on a flight, that you're not the leader who's with the group of young people who are all wearing 3 hoodies and big boots and jewelry and belts and all the stuff that has to be taken off and that delays everybody and delays you and frustrates people. So again, you know, helping them choose what they're going to wear and make it as simple. Some young people are frightened of flying, they're afraid of the aeroplanes. So if you can explain the noises, well, this is what we're doing, we're taxiing out. And you can watch YouTube videos with them to show them this. You don't have to sit beside them on the plane. But this is we're taxiing now to the end of the runway, the main runway. It's the one with the dotted line down the middle. And then next thing you'll hear is the engine being revved up, and then we're moving, and then we take off, and then you hear the wheels going in, and this bump is actually the doors closing and the wheels going in. That can make a huge difference, just to know what the noises are, you know. We've always got to bring extra things with us because we've got an international evening. We may want to bring some gifts for people, and it's not fair to expect that one person is going to carry everything. So I share it out with everybody. You know, who's going to bring what in their suitcases. And that actually makes a big difference for me as a leader, because I could fill a full suitcase with everything else that has to come. So it's great to to have young people who you know, have space in their bags and they're happy to do that. And make everything seem possible. There's no, God, I hope we make the bus to such a place. If we don't, there's another one. You know, this will be fine. What if we don't make the bus? It's okay, there's another one an hour later, there's another one a half an hour later. Even if you are panicking inside, you know, keeping it calm on the outside for the young person when they've done this for the first time, it can make it so much easier for you. And if you're not flying, maybe you're taking a long train journey or a long bus journey, doing the same thing, you know, explaining where you're going, why we're stopping. Have you, you know, I know we don't have border crossings the way we used to have, but you do when you're coming from, say, non-EU countries. But at the same time, explaining all of that and as you're going along. And then there may well be delays. So it's great to have some sort of games and activities, pack of playing cards, some kind of a board game. Maybe somebody likes to sing and you can start a little singing group. You know, I wasn't on this exchange, but a group of young people, they were on a music exchange in Germany. And the train tickets that were bought for them, the gap between the two trains was too small, so they missed a train. They had to wait for about an hour and a half in Berlin train station. And again, some of the group were getting a bit anxious, so they actually sat down and they busked for an hour. They weren't looking for money, but they sat there and sang, and people were delighted, and the time passed for them, and everything went smoothly. So having contingency stuff like the pack of cards, like the board game, like the musical instrument, you know, whatever it is, can actually, you know, make life a little bit easier. I know some of you might be there thinking this is all so basic, but at the end of the day, you see, we are all children inside. You know, when I'm nervous, it's all the childhood fears that come up for whatever age you are. So adults and young people, when they're out of their comfort zone and they're anxious, it's their child that starts to react. So if you can get into that person and allay those fears, it makes things so much simpler for everybody. The planning visit that you have in advance of the youth exchange is very, very important. It's really, really important. It's the beginning of your relationship with the other leaders. This is a photograph from 2008, actually. It's a planning visit for a democracy project we had with Ireland and Finland, and I think Israel at the time, and Italy. So these were the leaders and some of the Irish young people, because we happened to be hosting the planning visit in Ireland. But they're so important. I know during COVID, a lot of planning visits were done via Zoom or, you know, in some online forum. I really would recommend that you do them in person. I've been part of exchanges where we've done them online and you just do not get the same depth of understanding and relationship building that you will get in person. So in person is essential as far as I'm concerned. And I won't participate in a youth exchange that doesn't have an in-person planning visit. I think it's far too important. And it helps to build that team of leaders, not a group of leaders, you know, oh, the Italian leaders, the Irish leaders, the French leaders, the whatever, you know. It's not that. We're all the leaders of this exchange. And you can't do that online. So it is important that we get to know each other, not very, very well. You're not going to do that in 2 days. You've also time to get to know the program. Exactly what are we going to be doing? How rigid is the program? You know, all across Europe, we have very, very different relationships with time. It's a fluid thing in Ireland. It's a very rigid thing in other countries. I mean, we will always be on time for buses and trains and planes and things like that. But what's 5 minutes here and there is the way we would think. Other people, that really annoys them. You know, the rigidity really annoys us. So getting to understand what's fixed, what can be flexible, what can be adjusted. It gives you a chance to check out the venue, the sleeping accommodation, I think is important, the eating accommodation. Food is a fundamental thing. Young people need to have some access to food that they're familiar with. You know, many young people nowadays are quite picky about what they eat. I have turned this around on them. You know, when someone said, well, I'm very picky. And I'd say, well, then I'd say, how are you proposing to stay alive on this trip? What are you going to do? because I don't have control if we're going abroad on exactly what's being served. So how are they, do they need to bring something with them if they're not going to eat what's on offer? But encouraging people to try new things is important. It's no fun if we go abroad and eat the very same things we eat at home, you know? So encouraging them to break out a little bit. But there are people who are very rigid and will not, they'll only eat certain things. So just be careful around that one. Sleeping arrangements are important for people. Some people like more space than others. Some people, you know, don't sleep as well as other people. Some countries, it doesn't matter, you know, what ages, boys, girls, it makes no difference. Other countries, it can be very, very particular. So it's important that when we're coming back to tell our young people about the activity and what's happening, that we can answer all those questions for them. And we need to manage the different intercultural practices. You know, you may have young people, you know, who don't eat particular types of food as part of the religion. So that needs to be accommodated, but not in a way that makes them different. We just, it's there, it's part of it, you know. You can have, for example, in Ireland, the rules around alcohol is you can't buy alcohol under 18 years of age. And we don't give alcohol to young people under 18 years of age. Now, obviously, lots of people do, but within youth work, it is absolutely forbidden. So maybe in your country, and we're going to your country, it's 16. You know, so do we have a situation where all the 16-year-olds from other countries are drinking alcohol and the Irish young people aren't? Generally speaking, it's a rule of thumb, really. The rules of the strictest partner apply to all. So if it's about particular activity, if it's about sleeping arrangement, if it's about alcohol, whatever it is, whoever has the strictest rule, that's the one, and it applies to everybody. And I know, you know, some people find that really hard to manage, and particularly I think sometimes around alcohol and leaders. You know, well, I'm a leader, so I can have alcohol. You're a leader and you're in charge of a group of young people that you are responsible for, you know. I'm not telling people what to do. It's not something I would do. If anything ever happened, it's your reputation that'll be, you know, gone. But in general, for the entire group, the rules of the strictest partner apply to everybody, and that's something that should be, you know, made clear right during the planning visit, and it does make a difference there. In terms of things that might go wrong, we have Murphy's Law in Ireland, which is basically if anything can go wrong, it will. You know, the picture there is our 2016 youth exchange in Belgium, where we had one full 20-kilo suitcase full of Irish food. And some of it was for the international evening and some of it was for ourselves, but it was really important that we brought it. So if you were thinking in advance about things that maybe can go wrong, I think it's the purpose of it is not to be a negative person, but to just say, well, what are the bumps on the road that I could actually get rid of before we leave it all? You know, to plan out anything that you can. You're not going to plan out everything because things will arise that you don't expect, you know. Like I said earlier, humor can be great to diffuse a situation where you distract somebody. Like I said to the girl in the hospital, don't worry, I won't let them amputate anything. You know, sometimes that can be really, really helpful to just diffuse a situation for a moment. But planning it all out and knowing that there are things that are going to get by you. These aren't failures on your part. This is life. This is what happens. Some of the things that can go wrong, homesickness. I mean, even I've gotten homesick at times when I've been away for a while. So homesickness is perfectly normal. You'll see it in the middle of the youth exchange where the humor just slumps, the mood just slumps. So what we've started to do is we have maybe a 30-minute Irish tea party just for ourselves. Just take the Irish group off to a room. We make tea, we have biscuits that are Irish biscuits, chocolate that's Irish chocolate, that kind of thing. Not that other people's food is not nice, but this is about comfort. It's a big challenge for all of you to listen to an English speaker speaking English, you know, quickly. But it's actually a big challenge for English-speaking people to always be speaking slowly as well. So it's one of the things when we just all talk really fast. And you'd be surprised the difference it makes. I can remember being in Finland, I don't know what it was, a very long time ago, shall we say. And we just felt that the group was in a bit of a slump. So myself and the other leader, we had brought some hot chocolate powder with us. So we went to the cabin that they were staying in and we said, would anybody like hot chocolate? And they were like, yeah. And I said, okay, so, and then suddenly, are you making it? And I said, well, you're making it for us. We're like, yeah, we're making hot chocolate for all of us. So we all had hot chocolate and sat and chatted for a little bit, and suddenly everything was back up again. You know, so rather than giving into that low mood and people crying or wishing they were at home and whatever, it's just about recharging, bumping it back up again. And now they've learned the things that they can do again when they're abroad someplace. And they begin to feel a little bit down. Let's go just shift things a little bit. You can have intercultural misunderstandings, you know, and these can be over the simplest things. It can be the choice of a word that somebody uses in English that has a different meaning to an English-speaking person than was intended. It can be something like that. It can be the way somebody looks at somebody. You know, but what I would say to you there is for all the parties involved, listen, really listen to what happened, you know, and then have each of them look at the different perspectives. You know, you said this to me, you really insulted me. You know, well, what were you saying to me? What were you trying to say to me? You know, was that just my self-consciousness that interpreted this as a criticism? Helping them to reach an understanding about what happened. And again, what they're doing there is that's intercultural learning. You know, that's deep communication, and they're learning to take their time around communicating. You will have maybe illnesses or small injuries. Hopefully you won't have anything bigger than a small injury, but you know, illnesses. One exchange where we all caught a really bad cold, you know, a day of in bed with the sore throat and needing paracetamol. You know, and these things happen. You know, making sure that you have consent from parents, maybe to give people things like a painkiller, you know, rather than, no, you can't give them anything without contacting me. So now you're ringing somebody in the middle of the night to frighten them to say, can I give your child paracetamol? And, you know, things like that. Everything is always worse when you're away from home. You know, when somebody feels sick, they want to feel safe and comfortable, and it always comes down to that. So for you, it's about staying calm and making everything seem possible. We'll sort this, you know, don't worry about this. Again, Michael, actually, it was the guy on the very first slide in Estonia. He got bitten by a mosquito and he came out with a big red lump on his leg. But by the time he came to talk to me about it, he'd already been online. So he was now at the section on amputation. And I was there going, Michael, it's a bite, you know, it's just a bite. So all I could do to convince him was, if you were my child, I would rub some antihistamine cream, take an antihistamine tablet, and leave it for a couple of hours. And if you do that and it hasn't improved, I will take you to the hospital. And he did, and it went away, you know. But in the moment, these things can be really frightening because the people that normally give you comfort aren't there. So again, if we're prepared for stuff, you know, you bring a first aid kit, you have all those bits and pieces. You know, and you're there to keep everything calm, keep everything moving along smoothly. So I think this might be an opportune time to just take a little break. It's 5 to 3. What do you think? Do you want to keep going? Would you like to take a break for 5 minutes tops, grab a coffee, go to the bathroom?
Let's take a break.
Perfect. Spot on. Okay, well, it's actually 6 minutes. So if we said maybe 4 minutes past? 4 minutes past 3, would that be okay to come back? Stop sharing because I can't see anything. 4 minutes past 3.
Yes,
We'll be
this
back.
will be awesome.
Okay, perfect.
Hello, everyone. Just a reminder that we will continue in 1 minute. Helen, is it time to continue?
Yes. Yes, will I just keep going? Okay, we're back in business. So just back to my screen. Just one thing that I had forgotten to mention when we were talking about the things that might go wrong. It's always a really good idea to take a photocopy of each individual passport and each individual European health insurance card, just in case these things can get lost so easily. It makes it much easier to get a replacement passport or a temporary passport when you have all the accurate information from a passport to pass on to an embassy or a consulate. So it can be really helpful for that. And the European health insurance card, even if they lose their card, having the copy with the number will do if you ended up in a hospital or at a doctor's with somebody. So just another tip really on that. So in the middle of all of this, looking after these young people and making sure that all those basic needs are being met, and that we're trying to empower them as best we can, then once they're in that comfortable place, we need to look after ourselves as youth workers, and youth leaders. We need to take care of ourselves. It is going to be an intensive time. It is going to be a busy time, but there is always space in there to look after yourself if you plan it in, and you keep a watchful eye on things as you're going along. And this is part, I think, of the importance of the in-person planning visit, is that you get a chance to meet and mix and chat and talk to people and get familiar with them, so that when you do come to the youth exchange, you're closer to being a team of leaders. And then it becomes easier to ask for help if you need to. But this is, youth exchanges, taking young people abroad on trips, it's a very responsible piece of work, and you do need to be prepared and you do need to be rested, but you owe this to yourself as well as to the young person. I think that's important. We're not saints. We're not out there to kill ourselves, looking after somebody else's child. We do need to learn from this and to enjoy ourselves and engage as well ourselves. And we can only do this if we look after ourselves. So, the safety and well-being of young people comes first, but it still doesn't mean you have to be the one to deliver it. We've all had situations over the years where you just might be feeling overwhelmed. You mightn't be feeling just 100% health-wise, and you need to take a break and ask somebody else if they will look after your group. Or, will somebody look after these three and somebody looks after these three, and explain to your young people that you're going to have to lie down for an hour, and these three can talk to this person and these three can talk to that person. So it is possible to do that, but checking in on yourself, I think, is important, knowing that rather than getting to the place where you are overwhelmed or where you are actually ill, but knowing when you're heading that direction, and taking action as early on as you can. I think if you feel like you're getting anxious about something that's developing, if it's possible at all to step away and using whatever kind of mindfulness technique you might, whether it's breathing or, you know, counting or whatever it is, just to kind of calm yourself a little bit. You know, and I hate saying calm yourself because it sounds like, you know, you're going to be running around like a mad thing otherwise, but for your own sake, you know, for my sake, if I can stay calm, I can manage things much better, and then I feel better about how things go. You can look at the schedule and you can say, okay, on this day, they're doing an activity that I actually don't want to do. You know, so if perhaps somebody else could look after my young people, I could stay back, and you could be helping prepare lunch, or you could be doing something like that, but it's giving you some space away if you find it's too much. Like I said earlier, I'm an introvert. I love young people and I love the busyness of it all, but I do have to get little oasis of quiet and calm every now and again. And for me, that can be a cup of coffee and just going out to the garden, you know, for a few minutes, or it might need to be a little bit longer. So, you know, is there somebody at home that you can talk to, and not necessarily at home in your own home, but at home in your organization that you can link with, you know, for phone calls, to just chat about how it's going. Sometimes there's a little bit of a problem that you can't solve yourself, and objectively talking to somebody who's not here can help. And, you know, they can help to remind you that you're really good at what you do and that you're doing a great job when you don't believe it. And so that's important. And use the leaders' meetings. There should be a leaders' meeting every evening, or almost every evening, to talk about how things are going. So, you know, if you're not feeling great, or if you think everything's too high pressured, you know, talk about it and have them, you know, reduce the pressure a little bit. Because it is important that when you get home, you will be tired because it is intensive. You will be tired, but you're still feeling great because this was a super event. Not that you're washed out and exhausted, and you're hoping that everyone's alive, you know. So just be really, really careful about that for yourself, because you do need to look after yourself. You're an important part of this. It would be an awful thing if somebody's first youth exchange was their last youth exchange because it was a difficult experience when it doesn't need to be. Part of all our work should be reflection. Looking back at what we did, how it went, digging deep into something, looking at responses that we personally made to something or that a young person made to something. It isn't about beating yourself up. You know, maybe we're looking back at an incident that happened earlier in the day. And maybe I could have seen that coming, or maybe I should have seen it coming, or maybe I could have responded differently and the outcome would be different. It's not about me beating myself up about this. It's about me recognizing what worked and what didn't work, so that I know that should this situation happen again, I now know what I definitely must do. So it is not what I did wrong, but what I would do differently in the future. There's an expression, a calm sea never made a good sailor, and it is so, so true. You know, if driving on the motorway is just driving in a straight line, you're not really learning about how to drive, you know. You get more experience on smaller bendy roads with you know, more obstacles. The same applies to youth exchanges. If you go on an event or an activity and everything goes perfectly and you come home, maybe you haven't learned an awful lot because no little upsets happened. And like I said earlier, you know, some of the upsets that I've had to deal with over the years were things I should have thought about in advance, really, if I had been thinking. And some were things that there was nothing I could do about them, you know. But reflecting, critical reflection, really digging deep and looking at what happened and why it happened is really important, so that it's the person who's in the boat in the storm that's having to try this and try that and they're the one who's really learning. So reflection is really important. And we do reflection a little bit of it in leaders meetings. We do reflection with young people, usually every evening or most evenings, maybe not if we have a trip away, an activity that is a long day. we do this. So really getting down to it, not just did you enjoy yourself, you know? I mean, you can look at things like, you know, how are they really feeling? How are you feeling about the whole thing at the moment? Well, today was a really great day. I really enjoyed today. You know, I don't know. I don't really like this, or I don't, you know, and digging down to find out what's going on there. What are they talking about? What was the best thing about the activities today? You know, is there something over the week that they've done that they've achieved? Now, some of this they won't share in a group. Some they might tell you about in a conversation. It doesn't matter as long as they learn it, you know, but it could be, and again, that girl that did her master's in music in Helsinki, on that first youth exchange, they were making a presentation, PowerPoint presentation about their youth group. And she got up and did her bit, and she sat down beside me, and she just goes, that's the first time I've ever spoken in public. And she played a blinder. She was fantastic, you know. So just being able to give someone a thumbs up, or, you know, nod your head at them. You know, it might be overcoming a fear. You know, I really hate walking outside in the dark, but we had to walk back from last night, and I had a torch, and I held somebody's jacket, and they did it. It might be something that you noticed about them. You saw them showing a great kindness, perhaps, to another young person, or doing something out of the ordinary. Or you saw where somebody took the chair they wanted, but they didn't kick up a fuss, they sat someplace else, and telling them about that. You know, and have they tried anything new? And it could be food. Well, I never ate whatever it is before, and maybe and I'll never eat it again. Or it might be, it's actually nice. I will. You know. And for you then, whether you're doing it with the leaders or you're just sitting down and having a little thinking session with yourself, you know, how did your day go? What's your overarching feeling about how the day was? You know, and it was all great except for, and that's fine, have a look at what that is. Was there something that surprised you about yourself? I never did this before. You know, and that can actually be such a learning for young people, to realize that you were nervous about something, but you pushed through and you did it. You know, that they can learn that A, adults do get nervous about things, and B, we can actually get to the other side of them. You know, what can you do now to recharge? You know, just to recharge your batteries? You know, is there something that you should do at this moment to just build yourself back up again? And chatting with other leaders about how they're feeling, and you know, what it is that they might have struggled with. You know, sometimes we just need somebody to tell us, you actually did a really good job. You know, it's not so much that we want praise, but it's just somebody who says, I saw how you did that, you handled that so well. And suddenly it's like, oh, okay, that's good, you know. So it is important, I think, that you do that, you know, touching on the feelings, I think, for yourself about, you know, are you calm? Were you calm? Were you in control? Were you overwhelmed? Were you anxious? Were you enjoying yourself? Maybe you say, I haven't laughed as much. And then we learn just how good laughter is for us as well. You know, I do think that it's important that there's flexibility built into the timetable for a youth exchange, that we can adjust things a little bit, in order that if young people themselves are very tired, you know, maybe something was really good yesterday and they stayed up later than was planned for, but they had a really good time. You know, could they have breakfast a half an hour later tomorrow? Wouldn't that be handy? You know, just to help them. And what we're doing is we're responding, you know, to the changing circumstances. The other thing about all this reflecting is that it feeds into the youth pass, you know, the certificate that young people can get at the end of a youth exchange. Now you can do the youth pass as a formality, and here's just a certificate to say you attended, or you can do some kind of deep diving and saying, like, what did I learn under the different headings that are there. But, you know, sometimes it's nice even to ask a question, you know, at the end of the youth exchange, you know, what's different about you from the person who left wherever it is 8 days ago? Or maybe you could get them before they leave to describe themselves. You know, what are the characteristics? You know, oh, well, I'm kind of shy and I don't like this and I'm good at that and I like this and whatever, and then get them to do the same thing at the end of the youth exchange and see is there a difference in their perceptions of themselves. It's very noticeable, the confidence that they gain by being accepted into a group of new people. It makes such a difference, for them. And there is, I don't know, well, you probably haven't heard about Skills Summary because it's an Irish thing, but actually it's open to everybody. So it's an online platform where young people can examine and measure the skills that they have and learn how to talk about them, in terms of either employment or just general engagement in life. The thing about these 14 skills that they have, they're called transferable skills. So they don't come with qualification, they come with experience, they come with life. You can use them in employment, but you'll also use them in your voluntary work. You'll use them with your family, you'll use them with your friends. So they're wonderful skills to have. And these are the things we pick up every day. So you as a young youth leader can sign up to Skills Summary. Your young people could sign up to it. That's the website on the bottom there. And Matea is the person who coordinates it. So Matea is the one who'll answer all your questions. But it's really, really interesting to think that, well, what did you learn on your youth exchange? Young people often write down things like went on a youth exchange to wherever. And, even if it's a part-time job, someone goes, oh yeah, right. And they think of it like holiday. But turn it around, what did you learn? Well, actually, I learned I'm way more adaptable than I thought I was. I thought I'd be nervous in a new country or eating new food or not having too much language. But actually, we managed really well. There was a situation that happened and then I actually helped solve it. So this young person is talking about their leadership. So that again will feed into the youth pass, but it's actually really, really good for them to look at these skills and see what have they got. The organizational skills will be things like having my passport, having my documentation, knowing where we're going on our day trip, knowing where the meeting point is and the time for coming back at. They're all really good skills for young people to develop, and we can either manage them or we can teach them. And teaching them, I think, is the way to go for young people. And then there were 12 skills and they added in 2 new ones, critical thinking and creativity. And, it was his name, Einstein, I think, who said, we're not going to solve problems using the same thinking that created them. We need people who think differently. So helping young people to learn these skills and to take all their experiences, not just an exchange, and be able to turn them around is really, really important. It could be things like, these are just 2 activities, a river walk or team challenges, and what kind of skills, has somebody developed on the river walk? Water safety, environmental awareness, the go for it kind of an attitude, to try something you never tried before. Or team challenges, might be about communication, leadership, problem solving, teamwork. So, what are those skills that they developed as part of being on that youth exchange? And that can be really helpful for them. Now, that's my last official slide. This picture is just from last year's youth exchange. I try to do one every year if I can, obviously with a big gap because of COVID. But I do try to do one youth exchange every year. I just work part-time, so I cannot afford the time to do more than one. I'd do lots of them if I could. But we had a superb time in Germany last year, working on drama and theatre. And this was taken at a lake and afterwards. So that's everything that I have to say by way of a presentation. I hope it didn't come across like I was preaching at you on what you should and shouldn't do, but these are things that I've sort of developed as I've gone down through the years, and they've always been really helpful, and trying to get the best return from activities and from the time and money that we're investing in it. It takes a lot of time, a lot of money to do these things. So why not get the best out of it if we can? So if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to take any. And if you haven't, That's good too. Ali?
Helen, first of all, thanks for your speech. It is quite inspiring for me since I'm going to make a project on youth leadership, and also my internship will be about my internship will include youngsters from different different cities. And also, I am trying to this presentation gave me an idea to include those people and also make them feel comfortable the way in the place that they are going to be. Thanks a lot for the speech. It helped me a lot.
Oh, great. Well, that's good. That's good. Because what you're doing is such important work. And yes, you and your young people can come home and have had a lovely time and learned a bit, or you can dig deep and really, really get value for money. So best of luck, Ali.
I appreciate it. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it a lot.
Thank you, Helen. Before someone has other question, if the topic of youth mental health was interesting for you guys, we will have a full webinar on Monday with Tamara, who is actually here. So if you didn't sign up for that one, I highly recommend. Back to you, Helen.
Martin doesn't want to add anything there, does he, Jacob?
Martin is eating orange at the moment, and he's very happy. So
Good, good.
He is the youngest youth worker, you know. So he already traveled to like 3 or 4 projects. So
He has,
soon.
yes, so I believe. Yeah.
12 years left for official participation, but you agree, Martin?
Tamara.
Tamara.
Yes, so thank you, Helen, for the presentation and for sharing your experience. It was really interesting to hear you and your perspective. And it just came to me because it was in our recent youth exchange. And maybe for some people it might sound trivial, but I wanted to share that what I noticed that sometimes very inexperienced youth leaders, so what they do, they pick, their besties in the group of young people when they are, taking youngsters to a youth exchange. And sometimes they are doing it subconsciously because, as you said, they need their comfy moment, they are homesick, they need somebody to talk to. And they don't do it because they are mean. It just happens unconsciously. But this affects our young people, and this is what I witnessed recently when young people are discussing even that one group leader gave a best view room to their bestie. But I don't think it was that way that the person even thought about it. Just happened, but because they had this feeling that there is some bestie and there is, some chosen one, they tend to, make up some stories. So it was just interesting to see this perspective and also to be mindful that you need to treat all the participants equally during the project.
That's a really, really important point. And like you said, more than likely is never intentional. But we can easily, and if you're not aware of the possibility of doing that, and I had this situation where I organized a youth exchange. Well, I didn't organize it, but I organized an Irish group to attend a youth exchange, and they were traveling. I wasn't traveling with them, but one individual who was a leader, her son was with the group, which is not an issue for us because I've brought my children on exchanges when they were of age. But she made sure he got the best breakfast every morning, and she brought him his plate down to his table. I was thinking my children would say, why can't you do that? But it was such a shame. It's such a job trying to explain to her that you cannot be doing this. Everybody needs somebody that's looking out for them. And you can make great ground with a young person who feels they're alone by noticing them and by giving them some little extra bit of attention that they need rather than giving it to somebody who doesn't need it but feels they deserve it. But it's really about us as leaders being aware of this and aware of the possibility, and looking for feedback perhaps from other people. You know, one of the child protection rules in Ireland is that we must always send 2 leaders on things, which means we always have 2 leaders and one short one participant. But it actually makes for a much better experience because one person can be in the group doing an activity and the other one is kind of overviewing and planning around tomorrow or dealing with something that arose. And then you can turn around and the other one, you know, we've even been able to give somebody an evening off because I had Michael with me in Finland as a leader once, and he said, any chance that I could get a night off, that I could go visit some of the people I met when I was here? No problem, you know. So it's easy for us because there are always 2 of us. So building that relationship with another leader who can turn around and say, hey, listen, I noticed that you seem to, you know, spend a lot of time talking to this young person as opposed to the others. It's always a good practice, actually, and I should have mentioned this too. You know, when you're walking someplace, walking to breakfast, walking back from breakfast, going to the bus, as a leader, make sure that you walk with a different one of your group every time so that it can be a casual, it looks like we just bumped into each other and we happened to be walking, but it was a conscious decision on your part. And you get chatting and later you sit with somebody else and nobody feels like they're being made exceptions of. And it's all very casual. So, you know, that can be a nice, useful thing to do as well. But I think your point is really important, Tamara. Thank you.
Thank you too for your comments.
Sorry, it's Cisco from Spain. I also wanted to ask you, Helen, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. This last summer, I had I organized a youth agent with a Finnish organization that is about foster homes, and they came with 10 youngsters, and we had to add more youth leaders, but we put it as facilitators or educators, and they were because the government of that covers the system of fostering, they said that each kid has to come with one of their reference educators or reference leaders. So, and also they had mental health issues. So we had to put 6 youth leaders in total in that group. Our group was just 2. And also they had many conditions about how it has to be the accommodation, how has to be the food, how has to be bathrooms, how has to be everything. How do you manage that? Because we had to, the only way that we could do it was to book a hotel for them, room hotels for them. And our group had to sleep in my flat because we didn't have any budget anymore. So you can imagine.
Yeah.
But this is.
I mean, that's really difficult. I mean, I think we have to respect sort of medical things. I think we may have to respect religious things if people from different religions have certain things. I think discomfort is not something that we really have to respect. You know, I mean, acknowledge that I'm uncomfortable. I mean, if I had my choice, I would be in the hotel. All the young people would be in the youth center because I'd feel safer. But that's not the way it's supposed to be. I have to get through my discomfort and be there. So maybe it is about saying, well, we can't actually do that. So what can you do? What changes can you make? It's like me and the food, because I had somebody on an exchange who straight up said, I'm very particular about what I eat. I only eat certain things, so I'm not going to like the food. And we hadn't even left home, you know. So I just said, well, what are you going to do so you don't starve? Because people are going to be cooking what they're cooking, you know. I do remember somebody once, a lot of cooking was being done by parents, and they sent home a text message to say there was fish soup and there were eyes in it. And I think maybe that's just a little bit too far for people. But I do think in your case, Francisco, I think it is about saying it isn't possible to do this. It just isn't possible to do this. You know, there might be legalities, like we would have very strong rules about boys in one room, girls in another room. This for under 18s, anything for under 18s is all about child protection law. You know, very strict rules. I can't change those. But if it's just about, don't really like the idea that my child is this, no, I'd be bouncing it back saying, how can we make this work? And maybe it won't work until they go away and think about it think that for me is about what I do.
Thank you.
I can say class dismissed if everybody wants to leave now, if there's no questions. I don't want to keep people there sitting in politeness. And nobody wants to be the first one to go. I'm very happy to stay and answer any more questions, but if there isn't anything, I do want to say thank you very much for your time and attention. I hope it was useful. And you're doing wonderful work. And I don't think any young person who's ever gone on a youth exchange has ever been the same. I've never been the same since the first time I went on the seminar for youth workers. So, thank you.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you for your help.
Thank you so much, Helen. I think we can officially close it. For everyone who participated, we will send you the presentation and recording of today. Plus, for those who participated, we have a certificate prepared. Also, I would like to promote tomorrow's webinar with Ralf Ollinger from EVEA Germany, Luxembourg, who is doing participation, which is very, the topic is quite connected to what we spoke about today. Ralf is running around 50 youth exchanges within one summer with 200 volunteers. It's quite intensive and amazing what they are doing there. So I think it's very worth it to participate tomorrow. As I mentioned, on Monday, Tamara will be speaking about youth, about mental health in youth work. I know Tamara helped me more than 10 years, I guess. She's amazing psychologist, amazing trainer. So 11, true. I'm sorry. So Tamara is very well experienced trainer. And I would highly recommend her webinar on Monday. And then on 2nd of April, I will be presenting automation in youth work. So in case you have some boring repetitive tasks, I highly recommend to automate them. For example, all the emails, certificates, and all the communication has been. Yes, Martin, that's a sandal. Sorry. All the emails that you received were generated automatically. I was not writing them in person, and it's very easy to learn how to do all of that. This being said, Helen, thank you so much for today. It was very plentiful and heavy meal, I would say, when it comes to content. Thank you very much. See you some other time.
Okay, great. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye now.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.